I know you guys have been patiently waiting for Ziggy to make friends with the other horses, and today he is going to meet Skeletor. I got to the barn pretty early to do chores. We even caught the coyote in the neighboring pasture. This girl has been around the barn since we moved in, and Huckleberry is very well aware of the boundaries that she needs. With all of the morning chores complete, I can now start to get Skeletor ready for the big move. Pete was not letting that little coyote out of his sight this morning. I got my trailer hooked up and everything cleaned out of the inside. Since Skeletor will be spending the summer over at the other barn, I am going to give his feet a little bit of a trim before I take him over. He has been getting little minor adjustments every couple of weeks just to make sure his feet are growing straight. He has been growing like a weed. Not only is he getting taller, but he's also getting wider as well. And it looks like he is now sitting at 15 2 hands. That definitely makes him the tallest horse that I have. Pete would be the next biggest horse, and he is now just an inch shorter than Skeletor. Due to how quickly Skeletor has been growing, I have been having a little bit of trouble keeping his front feet just right. His feet were very underrun and splatty when I first got him, so we've been working on that continuously. Even though Skeletor is a very good looking horse, he does not have particularly good conformation. His front legs aren't completely straight, and it makes him stand a little bit weird. And since his legs are longer than his neck now, he does stand a little bit askew. Basically, he stands with one leg directly underneath his body and then the other one out to the side, and he kind of switches back and forth, and that does make his front feet grow a little bit slanty. Hopefully, once he's done growing, his legs will stand a little bit straighter underneath his body. Skeletor has been relatively sound on his bad leg, but he does still have trouble holding it up and letting me trim him sometimes. In addition to his injury to his suspensory, he does have some juvenile arthritis in his hock, so it makes it pretty uncomfortable for him to hold his leg in a normal trimming position. This kind of wiggling around is something that would make a typical farrier pretty upset. I'm pretty understanding with Skeletor because I do know it does not feel great for him to have his leg in certain positions. He is really trying to be a good boy, but it is tricky for him to keep this leg in a position that's good for both of us. Generally, my plan of attack for this leg is to let him move around until it's comfortable and do what I need to do rather quickly. I'm going to go up here and show you guys what I was talking about with his two front feet. His heels are definitely less underrun than they were. Hopefully you can see here that the hoof all the way on the right is just a little bit wonky. I am going to take just a sliver more off of one edge and hopefully help his foot even out just a little bit more. The outside tends to get a big flare on it because of the way he stands, so I'm just going to take it down a tiny bit more and tighten up the edge. Skeletor was just turning 2 years old when I bought him, and that is a really long time to not have the corrective hoof care that a horse needs. After taking off a few extra millimeters, that is looking a lot better. Since I've already got him in the barn, I might as well give him a quick brush before he hops on the trailer today. The beginning of the week we did have some crazy rainstorms and a little bit of snow as well. So the horses have been rolling around in the mud the last couple days.
Excuse me.
I've only had Skeletor in here for about 20 minutes, but he is starting to let his tiny little horse brain wander. After I get Nigel's clothes put back where they belong, I am ready to continue on with Skeletor's grooming session. I'm going to hit him with my special fly spray laser sheen mixture just for good measure. I have increased Skeletor's turnout time, so he's been on a lot more grass. I can definitely tell he's gaining some good muscle. There is one big chomp on his side that he had when I got him where there's some muscle damage, so it's actually getting a little bit easier to see now that he's filling out. I am going to go ahead and condition his mane and tail and brush it out a little bit. The quarantine area is really peaceful, but it is difficult to give a horse a good bath over there, so I'm going to get Skeletor as clean as possible before I take him over. Another thing I'm going to do before I take Skeletor over is give him his Adequan shot that's due. This is just an injectable joint medication that I think is really helping with the arthritis he does have. I definitely prefer doing it this way rather than doing a feed-through supplement because most horses just waste them, and this is definitely more effective. Even though I haven't started Skeletor under saddle yet, he has taken a lot of trailer rides. He's been hauled around all last summer. Because I do wait quite a bit longer to start my horses, they do get to see the world and kind of travel around without the added pressure of being ridden. Skeletor loves trailer rides. He just hops right on and usually doesn't make too much of a fuss. It doesn't look like Studman is too upset to see Skeletor leaving.
Hey, 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 hey. It's all right.
This trailer that I have is a stock trailer that was custom built with some slants inside, so each of the horses do have their own compartment. It's really nice because I can haul horses loose on the inside, or I can separate them if I want to. I'm gonna grab some breakfast hay for Ziggy quick, and then we are gonna be on our way. Huckleberry is pretty excited because we are a little bit out of our normal routine this morning. Skeletor handles the short little trailer ride with no trouble at all. Before Skeletor goes in his pen, I do have to tie a gate shut. This one's a little on the older side, so it doesn't quite close right. I'm going to put Skeletor in the little grass pen and kind of see how he's acting. I am going to make sure to untie him before I hop in the trailer with him. Because of his injury, I am going to walk him out of the trailer forwards.
Yeah.
Skeletor was over here all last summer, so he is familiar with the neighbor's horse. Skeletor actually doesn't really mind being by himself, so he is pretty calm and content just to nibble on his grass. I'm a little bit late for Ziggy's breakfast. I usually feed him very first thing in the morning. He got his dinner pretty late last night, so this isn't a big deal. It is really nice to have all these paths mowed back here. I was getting soaking wet every morning just because of the dew on the grass.
Zig! Hey, Zig!
I really haven't been doing too much with the Ziggy other than brushing him, and every once in a while I'll hop on him and take him for a spin bareback.
Come on.
I brought him some ration balancer for breakfast, and then I did bring a bunch of extra hay because I will put Skeletor over here in a few hours. I've had Ziggy for 2 months exactly. He has hit a little bit of a plateau with his body condition. I think being out on the grass would really help him. I do take him out to hand graze him, but I've been really slowly introducing him to the grass. With Skeletor over here, I should be able to take him out and about on some trail rides without the neighbor horse getting too upset. It looks like she finally noticed that Skeletor is over in that pen.
girl.
She does get along really well with Skeletor. They actually are quite fond of each other, so I'm surprised she's not calling for him. I'm just going to go ahead and let Skeletor sit in his pen, and I'll come out and check on him periodically as I get some work done at the house today. Since none of the horses have really made a big stink yet, I'm hoping that today's activities will be very low stress for everybody. Skeletor is happily munching away on his super tall grass. When I pop out and check on him 30 minutes later, he is still pretty content just munching away. I really do like having Skeletor over at my house because as I'm working throughout the day, it is nice just to come out and give him some scratches. I left him for another hour.
You being crazy?
I did hear him making a little bit of a ruckus, so I think the neighbor's horse was running around a little bit in the back. I have a feeling that Skeletor is just upset that she hasn't come over to say hello to him yet. After about 4 hours, he has thoroughly trampled all of the grass in his pen. It's starting to get a little bit warmer, so I am going to head over to the barn and grab some more hay. I'm going to unhook the trailer. I do have to pop over to the post office and go grocery shopping really quick before I do introduce Skeletor to Ziggy. I definitely could leave the trailer hooked up, but my driveway at my house is teeny tiny and it is a pain to turn around in. I grab some extra fly spray and then I pop back over to the quarantine pen. Huckleberry has been super excited about all of the truck rides today and the running around that we've been doing. He also really likes having horses so close to the house. It sounds like all of the baby magpies have finally figured out to fly, and Huckleberry is making sure they are keeping themselves in line. I toss over around 200 pounds of hay for Ziggy and Skeletor to share today. I want to make sure they have enough to do so they're not pestering each other when I finally put Skeletor in. Ideally, I would have them in 2 separate pens that are much closer together so they could sniff each other. But this is about the best that I can manage over here. It has been a while since Skeletor has been over the bridge, and it's a little dicey with me trying to film it, but he was a really good boy and went nice and slow with no trampling. I am feeling pretty confident about the addition to Skeletor over here until the neighbor horse finally sees him.
Hey, hey, hey.
I did not think that she was in heat, but as soon as she came over, she acted like she was ready to make babies with Skeletor. It got a little bit dicey and I had to stop filming, but I managed to get Skeletor inside the quarantine pen and Ziggy to smell him. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is just rip the band-aid off and let the horses figure it out on their own. It started off pretty normal with Skeletor and Ziggy just sniffing each other. Typically, introducing 2 geldings to each other is not a big deal. One will be a little bit more dominant over the other one, and then they'll just kind of go about their business. The extra variable of the neighbor's horse is going to make this a little bit more stressful for both Ziggy and Skeletor today. Ziggy doesn't particularly care for the mayor, but she loves him now too. Skeletor definitely remembers their time together, so he thinks that she is his mare. Ziggy doesn't seem to care that he doesn't have access to his mare anymore. These two boys didn't really run around for very long at all. I didn't hardly cut anything out. Ziggy is content by himself and he's happy to let Skeletor take over the responsibilities of keeping the mayor company. Before I ever turn two horses out together, I like to get to know them separately first. When it's time to put them together, I typically have a pretty good idea about how they're going to get along. It is pretty obvious that Ziggy doesn't want any trouble from Skeletor. He's kind of moving around the pen, putting him in a position that is far away from the mayor. Skeletor does still seem to be trotting around pretty sound.
Skelly.
When I was about to head in for the day, it seemed to take a little bit of a turn. For some reason, Skeletor began to get a lot more aggressive about keeping this mayor away from Ziggy. Ziggy really did his best to stay out of their way, but the mayor just got a little bit more heated and squealy. In an effort to appear non-threatening, Ziggy just moved himself to the complete opposite side
Watch
of
out,
the
buddy.
pen. Poor Huckleberry, he
sit here, buddy.
sometimes gets really upset when the horses make a lot of noise, and today he was just having a really hard time. This kind of behavior wouldn't fly at my barn. I would definitely separate this mare. It's one of the reasons that Prim is so separate from all the other
Okay, buddy.
horses. A mare, especially one in heat, can create a lot of problems between a group of non-confrontational geldings. There's really nothing I can do about this horse. She doesn't belong to me and she does stay on the property. It's definitely an inconvenience for me at times, but it's just something that I have to deal with until I get my own place.
You okay, buddy?
Every time the boys were settled down, the mayor would let out another squeal, and Skeletor thought he needed to go find Ziggy and let him know that it was still his mare. Since Skeletor is over here to be quiet and not trot or gallop around, this is not an ideal situation. It is not a good sign that even when Ziggy is not confronting him at all, Skeletor takes off after him.
Buddy.
Huckleberry was really getting scared of all of the squealing the mayor was continually doing. This is one of the reasons that he doesn't make a very good working dog. He is pretty lucky that I don't have any actual work for him to do every day because I don't think his brain could handle it.
Zig, you okay, buddy?
It's been about 30 minutes since I first put these two boys together, and Ziggy is content all by himself.
You
He's
okay,
trying
buddy?
to stay out of trouble.
Huckleberry, come here.
Every time Ziggy kind of settles down and tries to get his own space, Skeletor just gets right back after him. I'm starting to wonder if this is maybe the reason that Ziggy ended up getting taken to the sale. He seems to be a very non-confrontational horse, and if he was in a smaller pen with a large number of much younger, stronger horses, that could really be a problem for him.
Hey, Skill.
Skeletor really has never been very good at the whole herd dynamics thing. If you go back and look at some of the older videos of him turned out with the other horses, he just doesn't quite get it. Ziggy has clearly no intentions of trying to steal his mare away from him, but Skeletor just won't leave him alone. If you go back and watch the video of when Skeletor got turned out with the boys last year, he kind of did this to the other horses until they all collectively decided that he was not going to be a part of their herd. I have a feeling that this is something that Skeletor is probably going to struggle with for the rest of his life. And as time went on, it became clear that maybe this wasn't the best situation for these two boys. Skeletor continued to get after Ziggy for no real reason at all, no matter how hard Ziggy tried to stay away. This is the most that I've seen Skeletor trot around in quite a while, and I noticed that he was starting to get a little bit sore on his bad leg. Some older horses do make really good disciplinarians. Frisco Bill is one of them. Ziggy, on the other hand, is just a sweet, very kind older horse, and he has no desire to get after Skeletor and teach him any manners. Ziggy continued to try and hide and make himself scarce in the run-in shed.
You okay, buddy?
I started to notice that Ziggy was getting really stressed out about the situation that he had no control over. He was also breathing really heavy. He had been running around for quite a while. Skeletor was also getting quite winded. But that did not stop him from continually going back to pick on Ziggy.
Hey, Scout.
It's a really good thing that Skeletor isn't particularly mean-spirited, because he could definitely do some real harm to Ziggy if he wanted to just corner him in the run-in shed. At this point, I have decided that I'm going to go ahead and take Ziggy out of this pen, and Skeletor can be back here with his mare by himself. I had really hoped that these boys would get along and that they could hang out over here for the summer and Skeletor could heal. Skeletor does need to stay pretty quiet, and he should not be galloping and trotting around this much. I have a feeling anytime I were to separate Skeletor and Ziggy this summer that this whole deal would happen over and over again every time I reintroduce them. I moved a separate pile of hay over just to try and see if these boys could get along one last time. I am regretting a little bit how healthy I have gotten Skeletor the last couple of months. Even though he's not been getting worked, he is in particularly good shape. With the weird love triangle that's happening between these three horses, I don't think it's fair to let them stay in here and fight about it any longer. Ziggy was actually getting pretty scared of Skeletor, and he just did not know how to resolve the situation. Naturally, once I got Ziggy out of the pen, Skeletor was upset he was by himself and his new mare was taken away from him so abruptly. I'm hoping once I get Ziggy across the stream and in the grass pen, she'll just go right back to Skeletor. Unfortunately, the mare decided that she would rather spend time with Ziggy, so Skeletor was left over in his pen, and he did run around and get quite sweaty. I waited 15 minutes until I came back and checked on him again, and he had completely quieted down. He was starting to dry, and he was munching on his hay. It was at this point that I realized that Huckleberry was nowhere to be found. I frantically called and looked everywhere for him. I think in all of the commotion, he just got really scared and took off. After a very stressful hour of looking for him, I noticed he was riding in the car with one of the neighbors. He had run off a few houses down and laid down on their porch because he was so scared. At this point, I was actually pretty angry. I was upset that I didn't foresee these 3 horses having trouble not getting along. And I was upset that I didn't take precautions to make sure Huckleberry didn't run away. I kind of feel like this whole situation was maybe more stressful for me than the horses. Skeletor was now very quietly standing in his pen, eating his hay. At this point, I'm not really sure if this is how they are going to stay for the duration.
Ziggo.
Ziggy hasn't really been properly introduced to grass, so he can't really stay in this pen for more than an hour or 2. With it being so late in the day, I did head back over to the barn to feed the rest of the horses their dinner.
Tiny.
I spent some time snuggling Tiny, which made me feel a whole lot better. After the stress of the day, I went around and did a few extra little chores. When I was done taking down Skeletor's temporary pasture, I noticed a weird sound coming from the water tank.
Oh, bird.
This poor little guy had been trying to get a drink and must have fallen in. This little guy was extremely lucky that I just happened to be here walking past when he fell in. After doing some serious contemplating, I think the best course of action is to bring Ziggy over to the main barn. I really don't want to risk him foundering or getting laminitis from being out on this grass for too long. And given that he's just not going to make the kind of companion for Skeletor that I had hoped, it's better that I have him somewhere where I can actually ride him without this mare throwing a complete conniption fit. I locked her in this pen while I loaded Ziggy up onto the trailer.
Boy, Zig.
Ziggy did have a little bit to say about getting back on the trailer. This mare was a little bit upset, but I know as soon as we leave, she's just going to run right back to Skeletor.
Hey, Zig. Wanna come out?
As soon as Ziggy got to the other barn, it was like a heavy weight had been lifted off of his shoulders. Once he stepped off the trailer, he returned to the Ziggy that I had grown to love the last couple weeks. I decided for this evening it would be best if I just let Ziggy out in the little arena. None of the other horses made any sounds when they first saw Ziggy. Everybody was very calm and zen. The wind was really starting to pick up, but Ziggy just wandered around taking everything in. Even when Ziggy met Studman, it was very uneventful for the two. I do think on the inside, Studman is quite a shy, quiet horse. I've spent a lot of time worrying about Skeletor, but I do have a lot of other horses that need my attention. As Ziggy started to feel more comfortable, it was pretty obvious that he was so much happier over here than he was with that mare. Since they were the only 2 horses over there, they kind of had to be friends by default. The longer he wandered around his pen, the more obvious it became that he really was searching for another calm, kind of cool and collected horse to hang out with. A lot of people assume because horses are herd animals that they feel the most comfortable when they are in a herd. But for a shy, reserved, older horse like Ziggy, having their own space where they can interact with other horses on their own terms is really beneficial. Not all horses feel comfortable in a large herd and can do quite well on their own. I had been so focused on getting Skeletor what he needed that I had kind of ignored the fact that maybe Ziggy wanted something a little bit different. After the stress of the day, it was really nice to see Ziggy finally able to relax and start to enjoy the space that he was in. It only took Ziggy about 15 minutes to settle into his new environment. I thought I knew him pretty well already, but I'm excited to see how he changes now that he doesn't have the stress of having to deal with that nasty mayor. After he was done investigating, he came over to get some scratches for me, and I could tell that he was finally back to his normal, relaxed state. The plateau that I've been seeing with his body condition could definitely be a result of the stress of being with that other horse. I will be really interested to see if he stops pacing along the fence line now that he's over here and seems a lot more relaxed. I am going to let him out in this smaller arena for the overnight just so he can move around and make sure that his guts keep moving. I did give Studman some more dinner outside so these two could see each other throughout the evening. I am excited to see if maybe this gives Studman a little bit more peace because he won't have to be dealing with Skeletor any longer. I give Nigel his second dinner and close up the barn. I have been doing this for a very long time, and sometimes I miss things and don't get it exactly right, but I think these two boys are going to be a much better match than Skeletor and Ziggy would have been. The wind was really starting to pick up and Mother Nature was just not cooperating. I wanted to get a nice aesthetic shot of me unhooking the horse trailer, but I had to forego that this evening. With the sun setting, I wanted to check on Skeletor one last time. After all of the excitement and running around earlier today, I was really happy to see Skeletor standing calmly with his mare. Although Skeletor is sound enough to get hauled around with the other horses, he did that all last year. The timeline for me getting him started under saddle keeps getting pushed farther and further back with his injury. As he's eating his ration balancer for the evening, I am going to go ahead and make sure that he didn't hurt himself today. He has a few little lumps and bumps, probably just from running around and being crazy. Overall, I am really happy that there were no major injuries today because that can absolutely happen when you're introducing new horses to each other. Hopefully nothing will pop up over the next couple of days. I do have to fix up the fence a little bit before I leave. This needs to be connected. It's pretty easy for horses to get their legs caught in those if you leave one of the pins undone, so that's important to get fixed. Getting new horses and figuring out where they best fall within my herd is always a complicated situation. Skeletor will be happy to stay back here for the rest of the summer, and it will give him a lot of time to heal without the input of other horses, making him excitable. Given all of his crazy maneuvers today, it is really exciting to see him moving around relatively soundly. I'm still pretty hopeful that this guy can get back to some degree of work after his leg is healed. Having a nice quiet space for this summer is going to get him closer to that goal. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.